Hello, dear perceptive souls. This is Bevin Niemann. Thank you for joining me today. And I have kind of a unique reading because I just had a lovely conversation with someone on Facebook. And he said, all these different issues that are coming out in the world. We have racism, we have LGBTQ Pride Month, we have police domination and brutality. We have the healthcare system. He's like, all these issues are coming out, but coming out. Why are we focusing on so many things? We just need to make some progress on one small thing. We just need to see some change happening. And I could feel his frustration, right? And it's probably a frustration that we all have when we start to look at, making large scale change, whether that's on a citywide basis, a country basis, a global basis. It's like, damn, that's just so big. Like, how do I even begin? What do we even do, right? It would take literally a miracle to make this change. It feels like everything's stuck and frozen and it's all dead, and like, how do we get this flowing again? How do we get this flowing again? And I totally felt for him. I totally felt for him, especially when we see a system that looks like this, right? Where some people hold all the power, they hold all the cards, all the wealth, all the decision-making ability, it seems like, and then there's others in the background who are oppressed, I know these cards, are fairly Caucasian, so I apologize for that. Although, I love the Dreams of Gaia cards, but this gives that sense of like, and this is the Ace of Spades, which is like, I care about me, right? You can tell she's kind of in this space, the devil energy. And then there's this person back here who's subservient and having to kind of put herself to the background. And this is what a lot of the different issues that we're having in our society right now are really bringing up for people is, there are some who have all this power, all this wealth, all this ability to say what happens and to dominate other people, and we're not seeing a lot of change. And what I suggested to him was that actually we are seeing change, because until the more recent happenings, a lot of that stuff was pushed under the rug. All of this existed beforehand, right? And you know what I'm talking about. Racism existed, classism existed, sexism, abuses, and lying, and all of these things. These all existed beforehand. It's just right now it gets really uncomfortable and really difficult and overwhelming, quite frankly, to look at, because it's all being unearthed. It's like, it seems like we would be just like in a massive Scorpio cycle, right? Where everything's just getting brought up to the surface to look at. And I told him that's actually the change that's happening, because anyone who's ever, looked into the steps of transformation, that admitting there's a problem is the very first thing. And there's a lot of people now who are openly and publicly admitting that there's a problem. There are quite a few people who are not, who are resistant to that. And until we kind of move past that step, we can't really go and get the rest of this process done. And what's happening, and what I shared with him, is that a lot of people are really in this fear-based place. Either they're stirring up fear, or they're expressing fear, or they're trying to get other people to be fearful. And so fear is such a huge, huge energy that's out there in the collective right now. And it's normal for human beings to be afraid. There is a lot of unknowns. This is the most tumultuous time. You look at this, like, look at all of these things that are happening, right? It's like spirals and explosions, and it's like, what the hell kind of environment is this for me to live in? Maybe I just want to go back and just be in the matrix and not know all the stuff that's underneath, right? Maybe that's what I want to do. And fear is an important message for us. It's an important emotion, because it tells us something's wrong. It alerts us to danger. And, what I shared with him is that my own journey, and looking at where I had been in white fragility, for example. White fragility is the idea, well, not the idea, but the actual happening of where people who are of Caucasian heritage, will not speak up even though they don't agree with what's happening to a person of color or someone who's of indigenous heritage or a Black person, because they're fearful, right? They're fearful for their reputation. What will other people on my social media feed think about me? How will this impact my business? Will my family, disown me if I talk up and I speak up about the things that are being said around the dinner table? Or if I speak up and I'm an activist and I'm actually getting out and speaking against these atrocities, are people, is that targeting going to be pointed towards me as well? And this is where I realized about myself that although I deeply, deeply disagreed with prejudice and violence against people based on their skin color and their ethnicity, I was not speaking up until recently because of that fear and having to just address that. This is the card that came up next, which is the Eight of Swords. And this is, if I speak out, is that going to come back and wound me? You see, it's hard to see, this is a little blurry, but is that going to come back and wound me? It's like, am I going to have a repercussion? And the thing about it is that this is a new thought process for most white people. Am I going to have this repercussion? People of color, indigenous people, Black people, they know if they speak up, there's going to be repercussions. They know that someone will probably lose their life. They know that someone will lose their job. There is no doubt that that's actually going to happen for them. For us, this is a newer phenomenon to actually be considering this, but it is time for us to consider this. And this is why I am actively speaking up on my channels, to my email subscribers and my communities about what's happening here, because it's time for us to really come. You see the heart here? When we're so worried about this, the heart is not activated. The solar plexus is activated. Okay, I'm gonna protect myself, right? I'm gonna protect myself. You see a lot of activity in the emotional center. This is that fear coming up. But then what we need to do is we need to recognize that there are so many different narratives out there, right? So many different narratives. Everyone trying to make sense of this. The Four of Air is like, okay, I'm processing, trying to make sense of what's happening here. What's the solution? We're trying to do this intellectual process to see if we can get there, if we can find a solution for this. It feels like the clock is ticking. Like this person on social media who's like, we need change now. And I agree, we do damn well need change right now. We need not one more person of color to be killed in the street, to be to face the things that they face. Absolutely, we need to say no more. And I agree. And so we're all out there and we're all talking, and there's a lot of communication and varying, theories. And here's one theory, and here's another theory, and you see that there's not like a lot of cross and interaction where people are seeing more than one. For me, I've personally been out there just trying to look at everything. I want to read everything. I've read stuff that horrified me because a person could actually write that and believe that. I've looked at stuff that I completely agree with, and then stuff is like, I believe in some of that and not. And I'm just out there really listening and learning and using my discernment, right? This is our power of discernment. It's like, okay, where's the source? Who's talking? What's their agenda? And this becomes harder and harder in a society where fake news, and I'm talking about actual fake news, or people, saying, well, this is truth, but it's really an opinion. This is where discernment comes in. What is good for you? What is good for our future? What is good for all human beings? Is this thing that's being proposed, is this viewpoint, is this opinion, is it helpful to all people? I'm not just talking about people that it benefits. I'm talking about all people. Is it loving? Is it kind? Is it affirming? Does it uplift their life? Does it give everyone equal opportunities? I mean, these are the questions we should be asking. Anything that does not do that, does it bring us together rather than separate and divide? If it does not do that, then that is not a place where I want to engage my time and in my energy. What comes out next, of course, is healing. There's an enormous amount of healing, and we can't really get to the healing stage until we've admitted that there's a problem and we've actually taken these steps to put into place some things that will mitigate this, right? We'll see. So we see like the full-fledged butterfly here. It's going to take us a bit to get to this place. Right now, we're barely like breaking out of the cocoon. Like we're barely going, okay, there's something going on in the outer world out there. Like we're just not even in this place yet, but this is the future. This is where we can go, right? And the dolphin spirit is very intelligent. Um, communicates by sonar. It understands the entire ecosystem of the ocean. It's very helpful. When boats have been lost at sea, like the dolphin will come and help them, get back on track and navigate towards land and those kinds of things. So this is a really powerful spirit, and it showed up quite a few times in this reading. And what this is so we have, the 10 of air, and this is time for us to really face, so we've kind of been in this sort of adolescent energy, right? We're la, we have rainbow wings, and this is a lot of people, and I don't mean this to be offensive or not, but we've kind of been in this place, and I'm including myself, in a spiritual community. It's like everything is love and light. It's all beautiful. And then holy shit, here comes the shadow self. And you know what? We need to turn around and look at it, and time to get this higher knowledge, right? So not everything about being a spiritual person and being a seeker and being on this path is all about love and light. We want to stay in that vibration as often as possible, but we also need to look at the darkness. And this is about growing up, moving out of that adolescent energy and moving into the place where where we recognize that in ourselves and in society, we have both the darkness and we have the light. We don't want to shy away from the shadow, but we don't want to stay there either. This is about creating a balance point, right? Where we can actually start to affect change. We can affect change through the vibration we send out, but not just through the vibration we send out. We actually have to do things in this physical world, right? We actually have to make change. And this is the 6. So this is the balance point. And this is a balanced approach to the mental, to the conversations and the communications we're having, instead of going out there and being in this place of wounding others, making others wrong. It's like, I'm right, you're wrong. We need to come into this more balanced place where we're able to hear each other. We're able to present our view in a way that actually can touch other people's hearts, that actually can get into something that they can understand. It's not about making each other right and wrong. It's about opening that dialogue and listening and learning from each other. We have a ways to go for this, but every single person who interacts on social media or with your family or your friends can actually do this process. And then we have the sisters healing. So we see this beautiful energy coming in, the sacred geometry. Here's the dolphin spirit. Now there's 2 of them, right, coming in. We are in Gemini right now, so this is a lot about the Gemini. Gemini is a sign of communication. So there's so much being communicated right now, so much opening up here in our crown chakra, so much awareness, not only awareness of what's happening in the earthly plane, so you see the grass here, but also the spiritual plane, and looking up and looking towards the future. This is where we're meant to be going. And it takes, effort every single day from each one of us. And the 2 cards that came up to clarify that, is the 7 of earth, right? So here, this person is on fire, right? This person's on fire or surrounded by fire. That's how it feels right now, to be energetically sensitive, to be an empath, to be a light worker. It feels like, damn, everything around me is on fire. And what I have to do is I have to sit and I have to get myself into alignment. You see, every single chakra is equally activated, right? And to watch and understand that there's different seasons. So here we have spring with the blossoms, and then the fruit, and then the harvest, and then the winter. And we have to know what those cycles are for ourselves. We have to watch those cycles out in greater society. And we're lending, so we're not going to allow ourselves to be completely burned up by the fire that's going on around us. We have to hold this space. This is a very, very important vibration for every person who's on a spiritual journey to be holding right now. And it's very grounded. So we're not looking away from what's happening on earth. We're not way up into the ethers. This was kind of way up into the ethers, and I love the ethers. Don't get me wrong. It's a beautiful place to be. But this is where we need to be right now. We need to be on earth, and then bringing in, you see the snake, transforming at the heart and the solar plexus, the high heart and the low heart coming together. The low heart is our willpower, our presence in the world, our ability to show up in our community, and the high heart is doing that from a place of love and setting this high vibrational intention. And then there's a lot of activation here at the throat chakra. That means it's time to speak out. And we also need to learn. We need to study, right? One of the things that came across today was a free course through Yale University. And actually, I think I'm going to sign up for it. It's a video course that you can take, and you get 2 lessons a week. And it's about African American history for those of you that live in the United States, or even those that don't. And really, it's from the viewpoint of Black people, and it's a rewriting of the history. Like, I grew up, and the history was Christopher Columbus came here and discovered America. And then later I found out, well, Native Americans were already here. And I was like, well, that doesn't make sense, because, they already lived here. This was their land. There was nothing to discover. He just happened to be the first person from Spain to come here and find this land, but he wasn't the first person who came here. So it's about rewriting those history books. It's about it being inclusive in that. And we have to understand that ourselves. I have to say, like, I am not well versed in African American history, or history, really world history, and all of the different places where there's been oppression or subjugation or slavery, and still continues to do that. This is about getting educated, and this is a process of what we can be doing here too. So he was saying, there's not much change happening. I'm really frustrated. And I said, change is happening. This is all coming up to the surface, and we're admitting that there's a problem. And really, here's the spiral of manifestation, right? And it takes time. So we set all of this into motion, but you think about 8 billion people on Earth, all shifting and evolving in different places on their spiritual path, with different beliefs, different cultures, different ideas about how humanity should go in the future. And really what I said is, we're sitting at this crossroads, and one path off the crossroads is control, power over, fascism, locking down people's freedom, that kind of thing. And the other path goes over here, which is, freedom and appreciation for diversity and respect for all human life, and honoring and living in conjunction with our planet in a way that sustains our Mother Earth and us. And so this is the spiral, and it's like, what are we manifesting? Which direction do we want to go? Before, it didn't seem like we had a choice, like we were just going down this road. And now it's like, we do have a choice. We can make that change. It requires us to do collaborative dreaming, right? These are all different people from all different cultures, different places around the earth, Northern Hemisphere, Southern Hemisphere, all races, all backgrounds, all countries coming together and dreaming of a different world. Once we admit that there's a problem, then we have to say, okay, what do we want to replace this with? What is our collaborative vision for where we're going? And this is where I see so many amazing collaborative groups coming together and talking about, like, what is our collaborative vision? Right now, there's an amazing summit going on called Humanity Rising. There's so many things like that. There's the Week of World Unity, which is coming up next week. Like, this is what's happening now, is people are going, okay, it's time to gather all these groups and all these communities and start having this conversation about how do we actually move ourselves into freedom, right? And not just freedom for people with white skin, but freedom for all. This is a higher spiritual freedom. This is a freedom for the human race, right? This is a spiritual freedom. This means that those spiritual ideals that we hold are not just ideals, they are put into practice here on earth, right? And we see here we have the full moon, and then we have, what is the void moon, or the new moon. This is the fulfillment of the potential that we have to create this freedom within and freedom without, and to bring ourselves back more into a state of innocence, right? A high vibrational state with the hummingbird spirit and the streaming down. But right now the pedestal is broken. The pedestal is broken at the bottom. Our foundation is cracked, and we cannot build the foundation on the same principles and the same history that we had before. It doesn't matter how beautiful it looked to some people, it's not going to work for everyone. So what came through as sort of crowning messages for this is a huge spread, and it was really exciting, is that, you know, there is this higher knowledge coming through. And in the past, you know, here's the Lunar Queen, right? The Lunar Queen. So the lunar is more of the emotional center, right? And this is about coming into mastery. And here you see the moon right behind her. This is coming into mastery with our emotions. Our emotions are driving almost all of this fear, almost all of this panic, almost all of this hatred and division of each other. This is an invitation here with the Lunar Queen to come into balance with those emotions and to come to a higher level of emotional intelligence. We have to, or we can't make this change. We can't make this work. And the other piece is that is, you know, the 9 of air, which is that we have to come into higher level thoughts, right? So we've had specific emotions, emotions and feelings that we have about other people and judgments and all these things. And then, you know, the emotions and the thoughts go hand in hand. It's like, where are we? This is coming into a higher vibration. We're taking off the shackles right here. We can just cut these shackles so that this throat chakra can actually be healing, so that the communications that are coming out are healing, not hurting. You see the healing hands here, right? The energy that's coming out, the third eye activation. This is higher knowledge, right? That we just looked at. This is higher knowledge and higher level of emotional intelligence. This is what we're being asked to do. We're being asked to hold, to witness when we're being triggered, to hold that in honor, like, okay, we're a human being, we're going to get emotionally triggered, or that thought that someone brought about, boy, that really pissed me off, you know, but then I'm going to stop, I'm going to pause, and I'm going to take a moment to come into this higher mastery. This is the queen energy, and it's time. It's the rise of the divine feminine, and it's coming in. And what's meant for us is a new beginning, right? This is a new beginning. It's just brand new. This is a new emotional state. We're pretty much like the infant, the child, when we're trying to develop a new level of emotional and mental intelligence. This is a new state that we haven't come into before, where we can actually have civil dialogue and discourse without ripping each other to shreds, without having to unfriend everyone and all these things that go on out there. It's like, how do we have this civil discourse? And it starts with you and it starts with me. So when you go out there, you might get triggered by things, probably guaranteed. But there is a way to interact with others. And the more people that go out and interact from this heart space, the more that we role model what kind of world we want to have, you know. And then the ascended masters came. You know, there is a lot of, yes, we are kind of in this frozen state, but you see this owl spirit coming through again, and the wisdom is flowing through, right? It's almost like a portal. It's a portal. And here's the 2 moons again. You know, we have the void moon, you know, which is just pause before it goes into new, and then all the way over to the cycle of the full moon. And the cycle goes around and around, and we can either decide to stay in that frozen pattern, or we can fly through and bring this wisdom through right now. And this is what I'm choosing. I'm choosing to consciously move out of that cycle of being triggered and then making other people wrong online or in my family or my friends or whatever that is, and moving into this space. Even when other people engage in that way, I am working to not engage in that way. And what that does is it starts to set up, and here's our final card, the legacy of light, right? So here we come into elderhood, right? This is a stage of being a human being, of being an empath, of being a mystic, is elderhood. It's when you understand what your role is in the greater society, and you're just there to play it. You don't have anything to prove. You don't have anything to demonstrate to others. You're just showing up in your presence and your light, and that starts right here when you're my age or younger, right? It starts when we're in middle age, of learning those lessons, of learning how to communicate, of learning how to hold that light. And then all of that gets transmuted down into the young ones who are coming on this planet right now. They're watching everything we're doing. They're watching it all. They're watching what happens on social media. They're looking at the decisions we're making, and they are impacted by that and influenced by that. And they also have their own light and their own spark that they're bringing into the planet. But this is where we're meant to be going. We're meant to be evolving. We're not meant to be devolving. And there are some for whom the evolution brings up fear because they don't know how to do that. And it's okay that we don't know how to do that. It's okay. It's okay. But it starts with one person talking to one other person and having beautiful dialogues. And then it starts with one person deciding they're going to open space and bring in other people to have those dialogues and do a group. And it starts with people who come together and they bring their organizations together to create these beautiful global summits. And it goes out from there. And this is what is so beautiful about what's happening right now. But first, we have to admit that there's a problem. And a greater number of people have to admit that there's a problem than don't believe there's a problem in order for us to move and take that wheel of manifestation to the next cog, right? We can't move this forward until we get more momentum. So having these conversations out there and talking through this with people. I've been talking with people I went to high school with who have a very different political view and view on race than I do. And we've been able to come to these dialogues with a level of respect and of honor. And the more that we do that, the more that vibration goes out there. So it's not a matter of turning away. We want to look straight at it, right? It's time for us to move out of adolescence on this planet and really come into our elderhood, really begin creating this legacy of light, right? This is coming out into spiritual adulthood and then moving up when we're ready into spiritual elderhood and using our voice to generate a legacy, not for our ego's sake, but a legacy for our planet, a legacy for those who will come next. We're setting the foundations right now. So when you look out in the world and you think there's not much change happening, the system looks too big, we can't possibly do anything, please understand that that manifestation wheel is moving forward. It moves slow because it's huge. It's planetary, right? It's huge. It's maybe larger than planetary for all we know. And we can't see the whole thing. We can't see all the cogs and all the wheels and everything that's intersecting. What we can see is our piece, right? And you have a powerful role to play. It is time for those of us in the spiritual community to really start speaking up, to helping build this vision of where we want to go next, of what it looks like to live in a world where every human life is valued, where every animal is valued, every plant is valued, where our earth is cared for gently and tenderly, where we find ways to bring in equity and equality for all human beings and provide for the basic needs of everyone. This is what we're meant to do. This is where we're meant to go. And I'm excited that we're getting there. It's really uncomfortable and sometimes it's really horrific for people along the way. And I'm not minimizing that at all. Those are things that are actually happening. And what I would suggest to you, my friends, is as we go through this process, and this is the really messy part right now, when we're breaking up the ice and trying to get things flowing in a different direction, is to take care of you. Engage to the extent that you can, use your voice, use your positive influence in whatever way you can. And when you feel overwhelmed, or before you feel overwhelmed, ideally, take some time. Know what those cycles are for you and how much you can engage and how much you can't. And deciding what you're going to spend your energy on. Are you going to argue with someone, or are you going to lovingly and kindly affirm? Yeah, the approach I took was, I used to feel this way. I used to feel like, why is everyone blaming someone who's white for white supremacy and white fragility? And then when George Floyd died, when he was killed, I looked at myself and I said, I have been putting my ego, my concern for how people will view me if I speak up about this, over someone else's life. And there's a humbling in that. That doesn't mean I'm ashamed to be Caucasian. I was born this way. It's just, everyone was born with the skin that we're in. It means that I'm admitting and I'm taking accountability and responsibility for the fact that I did not speak out of fear. out of fear of retribution, out of fear that some people might not follow me anymore. And what I realized is a human life is more important. And people of color and Black people and Indigenous people and gay and lesbian and trans people, they do not have a choice about whether to speak up or not, or retribution. So just let that settle with you. Just take a moment to give that a consideration. It's just really important that we speak up at this time and that we help to build momentum to shift us into the path that is going to take humanity in a positive direction. We're at a crossroads right now. And every voice, no matter if you're talking to one person or tens of thousands of people, every voice matters. Every single voice matters. Thank you so much for being here. And I look forward to connecting with you soon. If you'd like to receive more amazing content like this, you can join us at 1millionempaths.com. It is a high vibrational community. It's a global community. We're inviting everyone in from all different countries and continents in the world to really have an open, safe space to be yourself, to be empathic and intuitive, and to really talk about our experiences, to master your gifts, and then help each other to uplift so that we can each make a difference in our part of the world. So please consider coming in. The link is below, and hit like and subscribe. If you enjoyed this reading, it will help you to know when other readings come up. I put out several a week, so I'd love to be able to connect with you again. Namaste, my friends.